there is a new book out explaining how the Biden Department of Justice essentially dropped the ball on their criminal cases against now President Donald Trump, which again allowed him to become president again, even after doing crimes, and ushering in the hell world that we now currently live in. Now, the book explains why the Justice Department, under President Biden and led by Merrick Garland, of course, made a series of really dumb and short-sighted decisions that ultimately significantly delayed and hampered the federal criminal investigations into Trump. These are two very big, important investigations. Now, those two were, of course, the Mar-a-Lago classified documents that he illegally took from the White House to Mar-a-Lago. Okay, and then the other one I think was bigger. It was the Jack Smith case, where he illegally conspired, allegedly, to overturn the 2020 election. Okay, so now those probes, they moved slow, like molasses. Okay, these were not very fast moving, and ultimately Trump was able to basically delay, and wait out, and got a hand from the Supreme Court that just allowed him to escape any accountability, any and all accountability. Okay, so now FBI and Justice Department officials had decided early on to move cautiously and slowly over concerns about the implications of investigating a former and possibly future president. They took pains to insulate the probes from even having the appearance of being political. Their actions, of course, amounted to absolutely nothing. As we've seen, Trump and MAGA-aligned politicians, of course, have done everything, okay, to call it political. To say, oh, look, political, it's all political persecution. That's what it is. No. Now, it's funny enough because this administration is now doing actual political investigations into people who try to hold Trump accountable. Letitia James, for example, James Comey, John Brennan, John Bolton, those people targeted through through the DOJ for these very, very political investigations for political reasons. I mean, going after Tish James for what, mortgage fraud? Are you kidding me? Not a speck of evidence, not a shred of evidence here. In fact, a lot of the cases being brought against these people were, they already had looked at them, and prosecutors are like, there is just absolutely no evidence here. And so why are you going to waste your time? Well, for Trump and the DOJ, it's not a waste of time. It is a campaign promise. They said, we're going to go after Trump's enemies. We're going to punish them with lawfare. And that's exactly what they're doing. Okay. So now in the book, which is titled Injustice, How Politics and Fear Vanquished America's Justice Department, and written by MSNBC investigative correspondent Carol Leonnig and Washington Post reporter Aaron C. Davis. In it, they paint a picture of a very hesitant Justice Department who took over a year after Trump was beaten in that last election for them to convene a grand jury to hear the evidence in the fake elector scheme. Okay? I mean, again, I remember talking about the fake electors that were convened to, no matter what, vote for Donald Trump and claim, oh, the voter fraud. They had signed affidavits and sent them in saying that we are the actual electors when they, of course, clearly were not. Okay? And in some states, they were even punished for claiming to be fake electors, and others, of course, got away with it. And in some of the states that, again, really didn't want to prosecute them for some reason. Okay? So now, even after that grand jury had been convened in January of 2022, the FBI sat there and debated for about 10 weeks before approving a memo formally opening that investigation, further delaying the gathering of evidence. And after much hand-wringing by FBI Director Chris Wray's leadership team, the memo ended up naming the Trump campaign, but not Trump himself, weirdly enough, okay, as the subject of the investigation. And that's not all. In the fall of 2022, ahead of the midterm elections, Merrick Garland opted to freeze both the classified documents and election investigations because of what some officials believe was his overly cautious reading of a DOJ policy not to take any public action close to an election. Here's the thing about that, right? Yes, the DOJ does say that, hey, you shouldn't, do that close to an election. You might taint the election, whatever. However, Trump was not on the ballot. He wasn't on the ballot in these elections and was not even running for president at the time. And so, this reading generally applies to candidates that are involved in this election. But Merrick Garland was like, any election, we're just going to freeze. Freeze. Oh, okay. Great. For months, investigators would have to wait to issue subpoenas or interview witnesses to gather new information, the authors wrote, adding that Garland had chosen to impose a very conservative interpretation of what DOJ officials called the 60-day rule, urging prosecutors to avoid taking public investigative steps within 2 months of Election Day that involved candidates in that election. Now, all these delays obviously helped Donald Trump. And eventually, Trump and his hand-picked Heritage Foundation Supreme Court were given enough time because of these delays to where they could basically make that decision, allowing Trump to be immune from prosecution, which then required Jack Smith to rewrite and whittle down the election indictment. And of course, we all know how that ended up. Smith was forced to dismiss that case after Trump won re-election because of a long-standing Justice Department policy against prosecuting sitting presidents. So now, Garland gets a lot of the blame here, okay? But it's not just Garland. Smith also, in his way, bungled the classified documents case. According to Leonnig and Davis, Smith chose to bring the classified documents case in Florida instead of Washington, D.C., the authors wrote, in part because they believed that more of the alleged criminal conduct had happened in Florida. Well, that's where Mar-a-Lago is located. So I kind of get the logic behind that, right? That said, he made the decision after initially underestimating the chances of drawing Florida federal district judge Eileen Cannon, who was a Trump appointee. Okay, Trump literally put her on the bench. Could have bent her over the bench for all I know. I mean, I'm just saying. It is entirely possible.
Sexual anarchy.
Okay. But even so, even after Smith learned the odds of drawing her were like 1 in 3, a 33% chance roughly of getting Eileen Cannon. Oh, that's too much. Okay, 1 in 3? No. Smith and his team decided we're going to gamble anyway. We're going to gamble it. Well, we're going to take that chance. And you know what happened? They lost. Obviously, big time. Cannon got the case and eventually dismissed it, as we all expected her to, on what many legal experts were saying were highly questionable grounds. Okay? Altogether, Leonnig and Davis show that Garland, Smith, and others supervising these cases, leading to the federal indictments against Trump, were straining to give him every single benefit afforded under DOJ norms and policies. Simply put, they fucked up. They fucked up big. And now We are all paying the price for their failures. This is what happens every single time. Democrats sit there and they play nice while Republicans cheat and play dirty. That's it. Oh, but well, we don't want this to look political. We had to do this. We had to, Fox News, they might criticize us. Oh, really? You don't want that, right? Again, this happens every time. Remember the Obama administration? Remember they had canned a report on right-wing terrorism in this country. They canned it because a bunch of Republicans complained. They complained about it. You remember that? Pepperidge Farm remembers, all right? And look what continued to fester leading up to January 6th. White, right-wing domestic terror. But, the Obama administration, we only look forwards, not backwards. Maybe if you look backwards, you might see the steamroller that is following you about to crush you and all of us. Maybe you should have looked backwards. Maybe you should have acted instead of, slowly pussyfooting around, taking your time and worrying about what Fox News is going to say. That's the kind of stuff that dooms a country. Look, I don't know why the Democrats were so weak on this, okay? Perhaps they are paid to lose. Maybe. I don't know. But I think that only a complete group of milquetoast losers could bungle this so bad to let our government be taken over by the dumbest group of fascist authoritarian wannabes in the history of our country. I mean, come on. These people are stupid, and you got rolled by them. Rolled. Getting rolled by Donald Trump, who can't even, look, I mean, he can't even say a complete sentence. Okay? When he talks, it's just gibberish. That's really it. And you got rolled by that guy. I mean, who talks about magnets? You get a magnet wet and they don't work anymore. You don't understand how magnets work. The freaking magnets, how do they work? You don't know. You have no clue how anything works. All right. Remember the stealth planes.
The brand new F-35s, fighter jets. They're stealth. You can't see them.
You can. That's not what stealth means. You can see them. They're not invisible, you moron. You lost to that guy. And then you let that guy get away with very extremely obvious crimes. Losers. All of them. Now, finally, I could go on, but the book excerpts, okay, also note that Kash Patel, the future FBI director, which is, again, sad, had backed away in a November 2022 closed-door grand jury testimony from his earlier public claims that the Mar-a-Lago documents probe was improper because he had personally witnessed Trump declassifying reams of documents en masse when he was still president and Patel was a senior White House aide. Turns out you lied about that. After hours of testimony, prosecutors would later tell others in an update that Patel had pulled back somewhat from his on-air statements, saying that he only knew about Trump's efforts to declassify a specific set of documents and didn't know about the larger expanse of records found at Mar-a-Lago. Patel has refused to comment on his testimony. And, I don't see why he refused to comment. It's not like anybody's going to come after him. I'm just saying. They have control over everything now. Now, not only that, but it also noted that the leaders of the congressional investigation into January 6th, as Representatives Benny Thompson and Liz Cheney, initially had refused to give the Justice Department full access to the evidence that they had gathered, which also contributed to some of the delays in the election investigation. Also, A veteran national security prosecutor at the Justice Department, George Toscas, had believed that it was a mistake to name the same special counsel to investigate both the classified documents and election cases, Jack Smith, saying, quote, "It's going to look like the anti-Trump investigation." You know what happened to that guy who was so concerned about making sure, oh, yeah, we got to protect Trump because it looks like an anti-Trump investigation? That guy immediately fired. At the White House's instruction, Trump appointees removed Toscas from his national security position just hours after Trump's inauguration. Oops. Congratulations. Well done. Look, these are a series of dumb, terrible political decisions that allowed for a 34-count felon to seize power and thus begin his reign of terror. I do hope that history is not kind to any of these people, especially the weak, ineffectual idiots who allowed our country to slide into fascism. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.